Okay. Welcome everyone to the Jewish Study Center class, the session 3 of Pirkei Avos, the pathways to life in a very not so nice time period in the world history. So, as most of you know, my name is Jerry Garfinkel. I'm treasurer of the Study Center, and our classes are free. Our teachers are talented, wonderful. Our expenses are fairly substantial, and we do encourage donations. You go to our website and click on donate, and you can fill out a form to donate with your credit card, with PayPal, or sending a check in the mail, and the address will be there. This session is being recorded, and I will try to post the recording as soon as possible. Might be on Sunday or maybe really late tomorrow before Shabbos. I am going to enable right now the live transcript. So if you're hard of hearing and you want the transcript, you could go on the bottom of the screen and where it says CC, you can get the live transcript. Okay, and right now everyone is muted. We do encourage questions. Please put questions and comments in the chat, and you can even respond to other comments in the chat. Chats are completely open. With that, I'll just turn it over now to Rabbi Edelstein, if I can find him. Here he is.
Thank you, Jerry. Should I let people in, or are you going to be in charge of that when I see people entering the waiting room?
That's my job. Don't take my job, and I won't.
Okay. I don't want to take your job. I don't want to take your job. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you so much. I hope I'm loud and clear.
Yes.
And I hope there's not too much of a delay, a Zoom delay, Zoom golly delay over here in the yeah, you know what I'm talking about. But anyway, I'm sorry. Maybe by next week, I don't know if it's from my equipment or just Zoom in general, but I apologize in advance for that. It's wonderful to be here again. This has been a delightful 2 weeks for me. I hope it has been for you. The numbers have declined, but I'm not taking that personally. I assume that's a normal attrition rate. And anyway, we Jewish people believe every individual is a world unto themselves. So there are 20 plus amazing worlds here we're sharing wisdom with together. Okay. So I also want to say, like Jerry said, especially with a smaller group, questions, put things in chat or raise your hand even. I think I might not answer if there's a barrage of things in the chat. I might not feel I'm going to answer every single one. It's not because I'm picking favorites, really, actually. I just, I'm learning the ropes of the Zoom with Amy's help and Jerry's help and everyone's help, how to be a Zoom educator over here. So, okay. So I also will say that tonight in our time together, we're not going to do the breakout room for interesting last week, but that will enable us to probably cover more ground, even though my goal is not to go so quickly. And, we really could have, truthfully, in 4 weeks, we could have technically read through all of Pirkei Avos, but that's, and that's a great thing. But we will try to cover more teachings tonight. And I'll explain, and we're going to group them. And actually, I want to focus on one area, which I'll introduce in a second. But I felt, based on conversations with the board and my own, emotions today and uncertainty and sense of fear that, for the first 10 or 15 minutes, share a couple of teachings from Pirkei Avos that, well, one maybe in a quite obvious way, one maybe in a less obvious way, that relate to the horrors unfolding in Ukraine. So, and I don't mean that we could find, I went through and found about 7 or 8 teachings from Pirkei Avos that really I thought could reflect on it, or but with everyone's permission, I'd rather do a couple ones I think are the most salient, and then go to the topic I wanted to talk about tonight. But of course, since it's a voice your opinion if people feel strongly the other way. But so in the very first chapter of Pirkei Avos, I almost did this. It's funny, actually. I almost did this teaching the first week, and we just didn't do it. It's a very famous teaching. We did a famous teaching of Hillel. If I'm not for myself, who will be for me? And if I'm only for myself, what am I? And if not now, when? So right after that teaching, actually, no, sorry, before that, but the first teaching recorded in Pirkei Avot in the name of the great sage named Hillel is over here. I hope you can see it clearly. Please tell me if people can't see it clearly. And it says, Hillel v'Shammai kiblu mehem. Hillel and Shammai received the Torah tradition, both, of course, the written Torah, but the oral tradition from them. Not to get too bogged down, but at this stage in Jewish history, roughly the 1st century BCE, there was a period of time where there were two leaders of the Jewish people. One was Nasi Abbe. One was both great Torah sages. The period of the Zugot, the pairs. One was both great Torah sages, but one was more the interface with the secular authorities of the time, and one was the more focused on, leading the scholars in their discussion, but both were great scholars. Okay. In any case, so Hillel and Shammai received the tradition from them, the previous pair outlined before. Anyway, Hillel says, or used to say, and here's the famous one. I'm sure you've heard this before. And again, I'm only reading the Hebrew just to, because it's original Hebrew, and sometimes I like to translate it more differently than Safari or whatever. Hevei mitalmidav shel Aharon. Be among the disciples or students of Aaron, Aharon, the brother of Moses. Ohev shalom, love peace, or be one who is loving peace. Ohev can be, Ohev shalom, loving peace. Virodev shalom, and running after peace, or pursuing peace, shalom. Ohev et habriot, loving literally the creations, but in the Mishnah, it usually refers to human beings. But it's not wrong to say, and there's a bigger sense, loving the creations, loving human beings, and bringing them close to the Torah. Be of the students of Aaron, loving peace and pursuing peace, loving mankind or the creations, and bringing them close to the Torah. So if anyone wants to start with your voice, not my voice, on this Mishnah, obviously it has to do with shalom, peace, a value that appears elsewhere in Pirkei Avos as well, and plenty of places, including in our prayer service. But if anyone wants to start off, with a comment or an insight, I'd love to start it that way. If not, my first name is Rabbi. That means I can talk and talk and talk. I'm just trying to see where the chat is. I have this weird full screen. Well, one thing about this Mishnah, I'll say, they're kind of, a lot of the Mishnahs in Pirkei Avos, you can see, you can number them, number the clauses or bits of wisdom. Loving peace, A. Pursuing peace, B. Loving mankind, C. And drawing them close to the Torah. And I'm not even, it's a very good way of, analyzing to say, well, what's the relationship between A, B, C, and D, right? Because I think I said before, it's kind of axiomatic that these sages weren't just saying like, oh, brush your teeth and, listen to your parents about what profession to choose. These are my own subconscious coming up here. I don't know. I didn't listen to my parents about my profession. But in any case, they're not unrelated, the clauses in their statements. There's an internal coherence to them. So you might think, what's the relationship between A, B, C, and D? Loving peace, pursuing peace, loving mankind, drawing them close to the Torah. That's something, I'll throw that out there, but it's preceded by an introduction. He could have just Hillel could have just gone in and said his message, but he introduced it by saying, be among the students of Aaron. That's an interesting introduction as well. So anyone want to respond to any of those points, or rather pointers, I guess you could say?
Yeah. Hi, can you hear me, Rabbi?
I can perfectly, yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay. Hi, my name's Shoshana. My comment is, who
Hi.
were the disciples of Aaron? Because Aaron's disciples, I'm assuming, were the priestly clan, the priests. And why would it be Aaron and not Moshe? Because it was Moshe who brought us Torah.
Oh, beautiful. Fantastic. Shoshana, beautiful questions. Beautiful. Anyone want to, and right on point. Anyone want to share an idea? I mean, Matthew says, I was looking, Mikaravan is related to the word korban. Correct. Absolutely. Oh, very good. Oh, good. I think Matthew is implicitly answering part of the question. And Matthew, I'll try to make your point in a second. Very good. Beautiful. He's speaking to okay. So again, I remind myself, Rabbi E, go slow, meaning not that you need me to go slow, but I talk fast and I don't want to shut out discussion. So Shoshana and everybody were the students. In other words, you're quite right. In that generation, Aaron's disciples, well, right, in the simple sense, he was the Kohen Gadol. He was chosen as the high priest. Though you might know, Moshe originally, it seems, our oral tradition says, was slated for that job too, but he lost that opportunity. Anyone remember why? The great Rashi quotes the I don't know the exact source, it's somewhere in the Midrash or the Talmud, but if you remember, and again, everything I say, I always have to say, because I'm just aware, everything in Torah is a deep, long discussion, really. So I don't want to get down, I don't want to get us off track. So if I share this idea with you, you might have 50 great questions on this point, and I'm gonna have to say, let's not hold them for now, you know what I'm saying? But Rashi says that Moshe argued with God a little bit too much at the burning bush. When God first appeared to Moshe to say, you're the one to take the Jewish people out, the children of Israel out, you might know Moshe said, who am I? And why should I be the one? And his humility and other factors, and he pushed back against God to the point where God said, well, it's actually, I have to, since I opened my mouth, I got to mention one point. It wasn't just, certainly wasn't false humility. And that's something we might talk about later tonight or next week. But Moshe also was concerned because his brother was older than he was. Aaron was 3 years older than Moshe. Moshe was a little baby boy. He was the baby boy. And Moshe felt concerned that he would hurt the honor of Aaron or offend him. And God said, you won't at all. But in the context of that discussion and that pushback from Moshe, God says, well, Aaron, I'm going to make him the Kohen. And it sounds like Moshe really could have had both titles of the giver of Torah, like Shoshana said, the teacher of Torah, and the role of Aaron. But he lost it. But whenever we talk about something in Torah like that, it's not like God, punishes and then says, uh-oh, what did I just do? There was obviously a reason. Aaron, in a deeper level, I would suggest, was the one who should be the Kohen Gadol. And the reason is, and this is what one thing that Matthew, I think it was in the chat, mentioned, and that is and I'll get back to your Shoshana, I haven't forgotten your point, because who were Kohanim? They were the ones who brought the korbanot, offerings, animal offerings, on behalf of the Jewish people. Now, I know we don't understand, we can't relate to the offerings, but I'll just, from our traditional point of view, it wasn't some barbaric residue of earlier pagan religions, although some people try to make a case partly for that. But the deeper, I would say, understanding is that we don't understand. I mean, it was, however it worked, or it brought, the word korban means like karov, close. It brought the Jewish people individually and collectively closer to God. It made peace, shalom, between the Jewish people and God. Now, I want to say we're not talking about, it's because the korban, a sacrifice is not a great translation. Korban comes from the root that means to draw close. Korbanot is the plural of offerings, or, but an offering, in order to do its proper effect, had to be accompanied by the genuine teshuvah, the repentance of the person who brought it, or the kavanah, or not every offering was for a sin. Some offerings were just joy offerings or whatever peace offerings they were called, but it had to be with inner kavanah to draw close to God, to repair a breach caused by my actions. It wasn't a matter of, oh, did a sin, bring an animal. See, and in fact, you probably are well aware, everybody. Yes, exactly, Barb. I'm going to get to that. Yes, that's exactly the connection that why he's the perfect person to teach this. Let me go. But I just want to say that, right, you are all, I know, well aware, literate Jewish people that you are, and especially whatever. I'm sure many of you. I'll be honest. Many of you might know Tanakh even better than me. I hope one day to learn Tanakh properly, all of Tanakh. Anyway, in any case, the later prophets, especially Isaiah and Jeremiah, got quite angry in God's name through his giving God's message of anger at the Jewish people when the korbanot, the sacrificial service, had been reduced to, we don't live a holy life, but we bring a bunch of offerings in the temple, and then that's going to make us all cool with God. God said, no, I don't want all your animals. It doesn't mean, right? Isaiah was not abrogating the sacrificial service. He was speaking in God's name, saying, I don't want korbanot unaccompanied by righteous living. You're supposed to be a holy people, and the korbanot are supposed to help you keep and attain and keep that level of holiness. And when it doesn't, God said through the prophets, I'm taking away the temple, right? And so I just want to point out, though, so the korbanot were not a matter of like some mindless slaughtering of animals. It was a process of repentance when you did it properly. That's really what it was. Why it had to be that way, okay. But, there are other understandings of that, a person would think, I really should be brought on the altar if I disobeyed, what the king wanted me to do. But God says no. In the animal, by the way, we know slaughtering an animal in the kosher way is not painful to the animal if done properly. That's been something that the non-Jewish world has drained our cup, if you know that expression, has accused us for a long time of, and it's well known, and we can talk about that if done properly, it's painless to the animal. It's very quick, if not so pleasant if you're doing it. I've never shafted an animal, but in any case, it wasn't about, God said though, that if this, I don't like the word ritual, because it's a word I just always, because it seems kind of, it robs the soul of something. But if this quote unquote ritual act is done properly in the proper spirit, and you have in mind that really in a certain sense, God would have taken you on the altar for disobeying what the king, but no, the animal takes the place. Meaning it was a purifying, elevating process. Okay, sorry for that introduction, but see the beautiful idea here, Shoshana? Aaron was, first of all, by nature, he was, good-hearted. He had I should have mentioned, he had no jealousy toward Moshe. In that conversation between God and Moshe, God says, Aaron's on his way back now to meet you, in Egypt. He has no animosity. He'll rejoice. He'll be happy when his younger baby brother is leading the Jewish people out of, is to be the one to receive the Torah. And so the idea being that heart that bore no jealousy for the brother, that's the heart that should wear the breastplate of the Kohen Gadol. That's the heart of the individual that, so to speak, represents all of the Jewish people in front of our Father in heaven in the sacrificial service, so to speak. So in other words, deep in Aaron's nature was seeking shalom, seeking peace. Peace not just meaning no fighting, but it does mean that. Something more, like a wholesome unification of hearts and minds. And that was Aaron's strength. So in other words, Shoshana, I think the Mishna is telling us we should be the disciples of him. Yes, in the real time, the other Kohanim were actually his sons. There weren't that many Kohanim originally, but his sons and then the descendants of them would be the Kohanim. But we're supposed to be the disciples, not in the sense, maybe, if we're not technically Kohanim, of learning how to sacrifice animals, but we're supposed to be the disciples because he was the epitome, the paradigm of someone who lived to make shalom between people and between us and God. And you say, well, where do we see? Where do we see that Aaron is a peacemaker? Well, like many things in the Torah, well, you see it, I mean, in the golden calf, where he comes off not looking so good, although he was really trying to save off an angry, panicking crowd before he was confident Moshe came down. But even there, you see him standing between, the people and trying to, like, so to speak, keep peace and order. But in any case, the more profound or the more pertinent discussion, very famous, all the commentaries on Pirkei Avos mention what I'm about to say. It says there's a thing called Avot de Rebbe Natan. There's another version. Once all of you have studied, and I know you will, this beautiful text we're studying, there's another version, a kind of version of Avot that has most of the same teachings, but with a little bit of an amplification of some stories that amplify them. It's also a classical rabbinical text. It's called Avot de Rebbe Natan, the version of Avot of Rabbi Nathan or Rabbi Natan. And anyway, that expanded Avot, if you want to call that, it brings a very famous thing about Aaron. While Moshe was the teacher of Torah par excellence, and Aaron, of course, served in the Mishkan, the tabernacle, but what was Aaron doing every minute? I mean, yes, the service took time, but I mean, no, he had hours in the day and night where he was making peace between fighting individuals, between fighting spouses. And it said he didn't just, and here's back to the text of the Mishnah, you can love peace truthfully, not hypocritically, but you could still be kind of an armchair lover of peace. Maybe you could say, no, Rabbi, I'm not a real lover of peace. But you could maybe be true. You really love peace. You can't stand warfare. But Hillel's saying you can't just be an Ohev Shalom. You have to Rodef Shalom. You have to run after it, pursue it. And Aaron would be, he was, I guess, not the marriage counselor, the social worker. He was always on call. And it said he would do the extent of embarrassing himself and humiliating himself if he had to make peace between people who were fighting. I give different examples in the other sources about that. So he was a Rodef Shalom. And he also embodied this other point. It was part of his mission of peacekeeping. Okay. I'm giving you implicitly, and please stop me if you want to be heard, and please, I don't want to be the hog over here. One way of understanding love peace, pursue peace.
Rabbi.
Go on.
Shoshana is.
Did someone want to respond or make a comment?
Oh yeah. Rabbi, I guess the point I'd like to make is that as difficult as I find animal sacrifices to be, because I love animals and it rips my heart out, and sure, this would make more sense when they lived in the land of Israel, but the karbanot were also a way of feeding the priestly class.
Well, I don't know. I mean, first of all, you already made a good point. Was that Shoshana again?
Yes.
Yeah, sorry. We don't have to go into this too much in detail. Not that I don't want to, but I want to keep going. But the korbanot, right, only could be brought when there was a temple in Jerusalem. We can't, do korban. I mean, there was before the temple was built, there was the Mishkan, so there were communal offerings. But obviously, we know that since 2,000 years ago, roughly, we're not allowed to bring korbanot. Now, the truth is, there is a discussion about whether the Passover offering technically can be brought even nowadays. It would cause World War III. Hopefully not World War III is going on now. I hope not. But in any case, we don't bring korbanot outside of the temple. So, Shoshana, it's true that that some of the korbanot were consumed partially by Kohanim. But I just want to make you aware, basically, the Kohanim were supported by the rest of the Jewish people, but not through the korbanot. They were supported through the tithing, through what's called Truma Gedola. People had to give them, part of their crops. So I'm not saying you're right. In the week of the year, that's all it was. If the week of the year where a certain division of Kohanim were serving in the temple, it was a whole, or a couple weeks, it was a whole system, you know, from the time early on in the first temple, then yes, it's true. The Kohanim in the temple would partake of the shlamim or whatever it was, but it wasn't like their yearly, it was 1 or 2 weeks out of the year they were serving in the temple. So an average Kohen, but they were, you're right, they were supported by the Jewish people through the crops, through the tithing of different, you know, what's called Truma Gedola and the Levite tribe gave part of their, to their Kohanim. Anyway, very good point. I don't want to, and I agree with you. Animal sacrifice is very hard for us to understand and grasp. And I was only arguing on behalf of the idea that it's deeper and bigger than we can really grasp, I think, in our day now. Of course, it seems horrifying to us or just foreign. It's been a long time, but, you know, especially if you want to look more, Nachmanides and Ramban and many others, you know, who lived 1,000 years ago and for whom animal sacrifice was also not normal, but they talk about the mystical and the effect it had. So anyway, leaving that, but loving peace, pursuing peace. But again, I can love peace and pursue peace, but maybe it's just abstract. Maybe it's just in my mind, even though I believe in it. Maybe not, but maybe it is. It should be linked to loving people. Again, easier to say than to do, right? But oheva briot, not just a philosophy, but like, you know, a heartfelt working on, by the way, loving isn't not just emotional, but seeing the good in and trying to respect every member of our people and looking for the good in everyone as much as we can. So loving mankind and then drawing them close to the Torah, you might say, and I want to move on in a second, but maybe that's the ultimate manifestation of love for someone, because Torah, meaning, it doesn't say teaching them Torah. It says drawing them close to Torah. Maybe it's not teaching them. Maybe they don't want to study Torah, but maybe inviting them for a Shabbat meal, or you know, sharing with them the beauty of doing a mitzvah like tzedakah, which is from the Torah. I mean, he doesn't say, it's so interesting. Aaron was a great Torah scholar, no doubt about it. He was the first one who would learn from Moshe when Moshe would teach the laws, but it doesn't say. It says drawing them close to Torah. And by the way, again, that word mekarev is exactly like the word korban. So I would just say, in leaving this point, and we can now pause for any comments, right, connecting our fellow Jewish people and the world, because the Torah speaks to the whole world, different, you know, tracks, so to speak, but all one mankind, bringing people close to the values of Torah. That is the ultimate, maybe, in ahava, love of the creation, I would say, and of shalom. Duracheha darchei noam, right? The ways of the Torah are peaceful, are shalom. Again, you might say, Rabbi, come on, King David had war. Okay, there were certain wars in Jewish history, but like they were quite limited in their scope and their whatever. And I mean, again, each of these topics we could talk a whole course about. But the Torah is a pathway of shalom, of peace. Comments and questions. So obviously, why did I bring that? We're witnessing, and I'm not gonna. He might deserve character assassination, but that's not my place right now to do it. But someone who doesn't is someone who's leading this, you know, who's not an Ohev Shalom and a Rodev. Whatever we say about him, Putin, we can probably say he's not an Ohev Shalom and a Rodev Shalom, at the very least. Anyway, and by the way, right, and I think the wisdom of Avos does apply not just at the individual level. Meaning, like, individuals make countries and make nations. So, like, you know, even though power politics on a global level, I mean, I don't know, are the rules different? Well, no. I mean, another discussion I teach with, you know, at GW, and all these kids are into international relations and stuff. But I think we all deep down know that, you know, if the rules apply for individuals, they really should apply, you know, to large congregations of individuals called countries. I mean, in any case, I'm blabbing. I don't want to get out of my comfort zone. But any comments on that Mishna? So all of us to be lovers of shalom, much easier to say than to do. Let's be honest. And I want to take it from the global, because, and then I want to show you one other Mishnah, and then we can, unless people want to stay on this. I mean, obviously it's, but it really, like everything in Torah, it's supposed to be as close and personal as we can make it. So is there someone we're not getting along with in shul, in our house, in our family? Again, easy for me to say, but I know that I'm not, but you know, we bring in the wisdom of Torah to our hearts, and as my rabbi used to say, into our kishkas, right? And that means to really, you know, and by the way, I want to acknowledge one other point, because we're all nice people here, but we all know, I think, that there's a part of us, it's something we might encounter tonight, but something I think we quoted it last night, a certain part of us, right, called the Yetzer Hara. We talked about last week, the evil inclination. Let's just translate it as that. And that's that whatever part of us that, you know what, enjoys discord, enjoys fighting, enjoys watching others fight. Now, many of you probably might say, Rabbi, but if we're honest with ourselves, and again, not every one of us at the same level, obviously, but there is that in a human being. You see it when, I mean, whatever. And again, I know we're not bringing us down to a low level. We're a wonderful, the people I'm talking to are very elevated people, but humanity has a thing, you know, people like to watch fights. And so for whatever reason, and often, anyway, so I'm just saying that it's a personal challenge to be people who really work on that loving shalom and pursuing shalom. I ain't there yet, that's for sure. Okay, any comments? I try to be, but try harder. Any questions? Amy, exactly. Very good. Oh, that's great. Excellent. Yes, Amy did a good job right there of like, you know, sometimes I skip to like rung 3, but you shouldn't do that before rung 2. Right. One of the beautiful ways, obviously, Hillel, by saying that, is like Amy said in the chat, teaching us that it's not easy. That's exactly right. You'll lose it. If you just love it, you'll lose it. It has to be run after. And it's not easy. Absolutely. Okay. So let me show you one other one on the, you know, what struck me. And something that is a little bit unusual in a certain sense in Pirkei Avos, because Pirkei Avot, I should say, sorry, and I sometimes go into my Ashkenazi pronunciation, Avos, but whatever. In Pirkei Avot, by and large, doesn't reference specific mitzvot, specific commandments, even though the attitudes and traits it's teaching us are going to want the ones that will help us to do all the mitzvot properly. Because if we're not jealous and we love each other, then we're going to do all the mitzvot properly, right? But this teaching, which I'll share with you now, speaks to 2 individual commandments, and you'll see, and a good way of thinking of them and doing them. And let me find it. Here we go. If you can see it. Rabbi Shimon said, and this is later, a little bit later in Jewish history. Don't be upset if I'm not going to give you the exact year. I don't know, but like, again, that's all part of the study of Pirkei Avot, but I believe many generations after Hillel. Rabbi Shimon said, Al tifil. Oh, this is fascinating. You know what? This is going to be an echo in a way of last week's teaching. If you remember Shammai, Hillel's not adversary, but intellectual sparring partner, Shammai used the word keva. He said you should make your Torah study keva. Remember that? Fixed, unbudgeable. 5 minutes a week I learn with Jerry, whatever it is, okay? Look at this. Here, Rabbi Shimon's using the word keva, same word, but to different context here. Because Rabbi Shimon says, Heve zahir b'kriyat shema uv'tefillah. Be careful, cautious, careful with the reading, the reciting of the Shema, the twice a day Torah commandment to recite the Shema, uba tefillah, and with prayer. And that refers to prayer in general, but you probably know more specifically tefillah. In the smaller sense of the word, it means the Amidah, what's called the Shmona Esrei, as you know, the silent or standing prayer, which is the culmination of the morning, evening, and afternoon prayers, the Amidah. So be careful with recital of the Shema and with tefillah. And when you're praying, al ta'as tefilatcha keva. Don't make your prayer fixed. I want people to help me. What does that mean? Ella, rather, rachamim v'tachanunim lifnei hamakom baruch hu. Rather, mercy and a plea for mercy, or it's actually interesting. The word plea is not in there directly. Rachamim means mercy. Tachanunim means supplication. Right. Don't make your prayer fixed. Rather, mercy and supplication before the omnipresent one. Blessed is he, as it says in the book of Joel, for he is gracious and compassionate, slow to anger, abounding in kindness, and reconsidering or renouncing punishment. And then he says, and don't be wicked in front of yourself, which is a fascinating point, but I don't want to focus on that. What does he mean? What does Rabbi Shimon mean? Don't make your prayer keva, fixed. I would think, wait, I should pray every day, 3 times a day, or whatever it is. That sounds like I should make my prayer fixed. Isn't that how? In fact, that's what the rabbis did. They fixed the times for prayer for us. Oh, the screen share was not on? Oh, gosh, I'm so sorry. You must not have known what the heck I was talking about, everyone. I apologize. Wow. Sorry about that. Hold on a second. I don't know where it got to. Can you hear me now? I'm sorry, I think my sound was off.
Now I can hear you.
Okay, how long was I off for? I'm so sorry. I can't. They make it too complicated. What's that?
You're off about half a minute, so.
Okay, I'm really sorry about that. It's really, you know what? I'm sorry. Zoom is wonderful, but it's a little bit complicated sometimes in how they do the disabling stuff. Can you see the text of? Challenges galore tonight. Let me go off over here. Hold on. I'm sorry. 1 second. You know what? Silly technical.
Don't worry, it's fine. You're doing.
No,
fine.
it's really. But what do you see now? What do you see now? I'm sorry, I got
Just the
messed up.
intro
It's
page.
really annoying.
Oh, it's coming.
Yeah, my fault here. Really so silly. Okay, did people hear though? You know what? Let's. I want to move on because let me just say what I said. It was a teaching of Rabbi Shimon, which I was trying to share, and I'm going to go back to Pirkei Avos now if I can get it. There was a teaching of Rabbi Shimon that said, "Don't make your prayer fixed. Rather, it should be a pleading for mercy and compassion before the omnipresent one." And why was I mentioning this now? Because, we're living in difficult, scary times. Not only with what's going on in Ukraine, where thousands and thousands of innocent people and Jewish people live in both Russia and Ukraine. So, and, who knows where this could lead. Hopefully it won't really, it's already out of control. But so we're living in, difficult times. And, just in the last week, I'm always careful, or I try to be moderate with just not overreacting to things. But, anti-Semitic flyers appearing in many cities. If you saw that COVID is a Jewish plot. I'm just saying that we're living in a time of there's plenty to be nervous about in the world. And what do we Jewish people do? Well, we take initiative. We put our kepis together to figure out strategies, and we daven and we pray. And prayer, if in normal times it's not right, but if we sometimes make our prayer just kind of, okay, I'm doing it, and that's good. It's always good to go through the motions, but that's not what prayer is supposed to be. It's supposed to be a pouring out your heart before Hashem and looking inward. And, so if ever there's a time, whenever it's difficult times to really focus on this and making one's prayer on behalf of the world and on behalf of our fellow Jewish brethren and all innocent people, it should be rachamim v'tachanunim lifnei makom. Mercy and beseeching God to bring the world, help us and to bring the world to shalom. So that's why I thought of this. That was one of the connections there. Can everyone hear me? And any comments on that?
We can hear you.
Exactly, Shoshana, right. In other words, the Shoshana mentioned prayer in terms of the times of the day and the regularity is indeed supposed to be fixed. Now, you don't just pray. I mean, well, not. I mean, I don't judge, but I mean, obviously, we're not supposed to just pray when we're inspired or God forbid when there's a tragedy. It's just like, we generally don't eat on a random schedule. Although I guess you could say, well, no, we only eat when we're hungry. But we tend to be hungry 2 or 3 times a day, right? Well, that's not my own comparison. A great rabbi, the Kuzari, I'm sure Amy knows, and many of you know, great book of Jewish thought in the Middle Ages, the Kuzari, famously compares the 3 times a day prayer that the rabbis instituted, that we should pray 3 times a day in a more fixed setting, and the 3 meals we eat every day, roughly, morning, noon, and night, or whatever. So, because just like your body, a healthy body, I'm not talking about quantity of food, but regularity of nourishment. So our souls need regularity of nourishment. But like Shoshana said, exactly, inwardly it shouldn't be fixed. It shouldn't be same words. I'm saying this like it's supposed to be a real avoda shebalev, service of the heart. So anyway, we should all have peace in this world, and no one should be harmed anymore from what's going on. Anyone want to close out that section? And then I want to introduce a totally different theme, if that's good. Okay, you're on board with me? I hope so. Great. Okay. So I'm debating between, I'm gonna roll my inner dice because I don't want to take a vote because the votes will never be this. I believe in democracy. Unlike, whatever, the one who's causing trouble at the moment. I do believe, well, I shouldn't say that. I believe in democracy with wisdom, with a wise electorate, okay? So in any case, I'm not going to do a vote, but we've focused a little bit on, a lot of Pirkei Avos is traits and how to treat people interpersonal. And that is so, so important. There's many other Mishnas we're not going to look at tonight, maybe even not next week, about the honor of your fellow person should be dear to you like your own. The property of your fellow person should be dear to you like your own. You should try to make your actions both pleasing to God and pleasing to your fellow man, not in the sense of flattery, but in the sense of, in other words, in our faith, it's important how things look. It's not just that you're doing something that's right because God said. You have to, the best of your ability, try to do it in a way that's pleasing. That's again, it doesn't mean cut a corner of a mitzvah just because some person doesn't like it. No, that's not what it means, I don't think. But anyway, there are many, many guidelines for interpersonal elevation in Pirkei Avos. But I want to do something else for the next 20, 25 minutes tonight, just because it's another part of Pirkei Avos. And you might not know it's in here, but it's interesting and it's very different. And I'd love to hear after we do it, whether for next week you want to say something more in this angle or go to a different angle, because there's still a few subject areas we haven't covered, including the following. Let me stop introducing and start talking. Bigger philosophical, so to speak, the bigger Jewish existential worldview. There are many teachings in Pirkei Avos. I'm always wary of saying the word philosophy but like Jewish philosophy is also covered in Pirkei Avos. Many of the pillars of what's called in Hebrew hashkafa, the Weltanschauung, the outlook of the Torah, not just on getting along well with people and treating them beautifully, which is so important, but on life, death, and beyond. So I want to look at a few of those with your indulgence. I hope you'll find it. And we're not going to go in chronological order, but I want to introduce something. Yeah. Okay, we're going to go right to a very deep one. And okay, you know what? I'm doing my best to let me share the screen. Let me find. Do you see me scrolling down, by the way, everybody? Jerry, do you see me scrolling down?
Just see you.
Oh, you don't see a screen at the moment.
There's no
Screen's not
sharing.
sharing.
Okay, good, fine. Thank you. I'm going to share in a second. Thank you. Okay, so okay, you know what? I wasn't going to start with this one because, but you know what? I always get myself into a pickle. Should I do this one or a different one? Hold on. You know what? We'll come back to that one. That's a very philosophical one. Oh, you know what? I'm going to show it. Please don't let me do the whole rest of the time tonight on this one, but I do want to show you. I said the Pirkei Avos gets philosophical. It absolutely does. If you look at this teaching here, we're not going to do all of it because it's quite complicated, I think. But it's actually, the whole thing's complicated, but look over here if you see where I am. And this is the words of, I'm sorry. Oh yeah, this is Rabbi Akiva, the great Rabbi Akiva. Everything is foreseen. If you see where I am, Huaya Omer. Oh, that's the wrong thing. Hakol Tzafoy. Everything is seen. Is Tzafoy means to look or is observed or seen. V'harashut nituna. But choice is given, and the world is judged with goodness, and everything is in accordance with the preponderance of works. Okay, the last part is. I didn't want to do that necessarily, except the importance of not just doing a few good deeds, but that God looks at, right. Quality is very important, but quantity is important too. That multiplying our good deeds is very important. But anyway, the first part is what I'm interested in. Everything is foreseen, yet freedom of choice is granted. So what is this talking about? I think everyone can understand the unfathomable, famous discussion in human philosophy. And again, this is not our main thing right now, but how can we have a tradition that Hashem, the infinite one, infinite means not bounded by time, and implicit in that, you might say, or whatever, but a related point that it is the traditional Jewish view that this infinite being that created us and in whose image we're created is above time, past, present, and future. Don't exist. They exist in space-time where we exist. Don't exist in an absolute sense. They're creations. And so therefore, just to not sound so highfalutin, God knows the future. How can God's knowledge be absolute?
We don't see the whole script, by the way. We're saying only.
Say that again. Oh, what do you see? You don't see what? Hold on. Sorry tonight that things are getting. What do you see?
There, it's small. That's good, but it's a wider screen. That's better.
I'm very sorry. Let me go back and share it better. I don't.
Rabbi, why don't you just go on
I
and tell it to us? I mean, that way we can understand it.
No, but this is very fine. Okay. The next one I'll do. But anyway, okay, right. The thing that I didn't share properly there was a simple thing, and we can talk or not talk about it. You can contemplate it. We can all contemplate it for years, but we won't ever get to the end of it. And that is God's knowledge, our free choice. Everything is foreseen, but we have free choice. Now, it's kind of bold and brazen of me to do a quick overview of this, like there are books written about this, even Jewish books. But I just want to tell you, Rabbi Akiva was probably one of the greatest sages of the oral law and of Jewish mysticism. Rabbi Akiva was a Mikubal. He was a Kabbalist. Right? Kabbalah, that's another, we should do another class on Kabbalah. I'm no expert at all, but like it's fascinating. But Rabbi Akiva learned the secrets of the mystical things. The Talmud says that. So Rabbi Akiva was, in other words, like some rabbis in the Talmudic era, these names in our book tonight that we're studying, some are known as great legalists or great, midrash, homiletic masters. Rabbi Akiva was a master of all areas of Torah, including hidden ones. In fact, I'll just tell you a very famous story you might have heard. Not that I can explain it, but it says 4 great rabbis entered the orchard, the Pardes, and that's a synonym for high-level, mystical, meditative, spiritual ascendance. 4 great rabbis got to this level of, literally Kabbalistic meditation. One went crazy, one died, one became a heretic, and only one came out unscathed from that, and that was Rabbi Akiva. I think it was Rabbi Akiva. It wasn't Rabbi Meir, was it? No, it was Rabbi Akiva. Okay, I better have quoted that right. Anyway, if you're trying to, I wasn't showing off, but I want to tell you that story. So anyway, Rabbi Akiva was a master of everything. If anyone had seen as deeply into, there's even a famous story where once Moses, it says, was shown by God the generation of Rabbi Akiva. Right. Thank you, Aaron. I thought so. Yeah. And thank you. And Moses couldn't believe the things Rabbi Akiva was teaching. He says, like, I don't understand that. Exactly. Whatever. I'm paraphrasing. And God said, no, it all comes from the Torah you taught the Jewish people. It's Torah Moshe. But in any case, all I'm saying is Rabbi Akiva has the credentials. And he says, these two seemingly contradictory ideas that philosophers and students of mine, I've had many a student over my career go, Rabbi, it can't be. If God knows everything, I have no free choice. And I said, Rabbi Akiva and many other greats say they both exist. How could that be? How can quantum physics work? I'm not just saying that in a silly way. How can quantum physics work? It doesn't make any sense. Einstein didn't believe it, but it seems to be true. There are paradoxes. So, okay. Wow, Matthew, this is deep. Matthew's making a comment. I was notorious once someone made this comparison in the past. He had free choice in every choice he made, but now those choices are fixed in time. And his comparison was that he imagined, who's the he? God? Imagine his choice in the future were the same way? I think you're saying a great point. I'm just not sure I get exactly what you mean. Right. No. Okay, but I understand that, Matthew. I just, maybe if you want to say it, I'm not sure I get it. That's my lack of sharpness tonight. But again, I want to move on. But I want to show this is an example of a very philosophical kind of God and the world statement in Pirkei Avos. But I do want to say But again, it's not just abstract. I'll give you one example. Sorry. Right. There are many times in okay, fantastic, Amy, fantastic. Amy goes right to the heart. Great. Amy mentions the one time in the Torah, the famous time that Maimonides talks about, where, no, but it's even more than that, Amy, truthfully, I mean, a little bit, where God, it would seem, turns off someone's free will, and that's Pharaoh. It would seem, that's how Maimonides understands God hardening Pharaoh's heart, that as the ultimate punishment for an ultimate level of evil, God can take away the free will. That's only after plague number 5. But you're right, he was hardening his own heart. That was a part of the effect as well, or he was doing it himself. But so at least Maimonides, not everyone, Amy, but Maimonides says God, not often, but turned off Pharaoh's free will. But in general, it's such a big principle of Judaism and Jewish ethics that we have free will. And that's another topic. The Torah makes no sense unless we have some free will. How can we be told thou shalt not? I mean, so, and I know there have been brilliant people who don't believe in free will, past and present, but the Torah takes it as an axiom. We have free will. Is our free will unlimited? Of course not. It's very limited sometimes, but we have moral free will. Anyway, I want to just say that, so it's a paradox. Just like God, just like a non-physical being, Hashem, can communicate in some way, which he showed he could with the physical realm he created. That's also paradoxical. So I once had a rabbi, I'll just finish with this point, that he said, so I'm not saying you can't fruitfully still try to understand more deeply the limits of our free will. Of course you can. And God's, but like ultimately, Rabbi Akiva is saying, accept that they go together. And I had a rabbi once said, you go to buy Walmart and you buy a $15 watch. I don't know if you can even get a $15 watch anymore, but you get a $15 watch. You come home and you say, hey, this isn't programming an alarm here. And because the watch is not made for that. Well, our brains, as great as they are and as miraculous as they are and what they can think and scheme and do, cannot at the moment fully understand free will, God's knowledge, how they go together. We could talk more about that, but there are more other ideas to share, but I want to move on. But I just want to say, it's not just abstract philosophy. How many times I won't say you and I, but how many times have human beings said on some level, like, it's just meant to be this way, that I'm not able to X. So there are things in our lives that are meant to be. But when it comes to moral free choice, we never have that luxury of saying that. We always have some level of free choice. And that's, Right, according to Judaism, like it's not. Again, only God can judge how much we could have done in that situation. We can't just say, "Oh, like it's predestined." Fatalistically, I was meant to just punch that person when I got mad at him. No, that's not really. Free choice is given. Anyway, let me move on. I want to show you one other one. Since we got one deep thing, let me show you another one. Okay. I see. For you to choose one. Beautiful. Only God knows the foreseen, but we don't. Beautiful. I love that. We have to free will our choice. Our free will. That's a beautiful, the ultimate choice. Barb is saying over here in the chat. Really, you're saying a very profound thing, Barb. Free choice is not just about like, should I be mean, say a bad thing to this person or that person, but okay, this is difficult stuff. But like, am I going to choose to frame an event as random or as coming from a God who, arranged it, or in my life, or how am I right? Am I going to choose to relate to, and I'm not judging people who don't choose to that. I'm just saying, am I going to choose to relate to the Torah and its wisdom as something real in my life, or am I going to not? I mean, again, it's not all choice. I mean, well, yeah, I don't want to, I'm getting too deep for myself. I want to look over here. But yes, to choose to work to be better, right? Free choice doesn't mean I'm going to choose to be an angel now. We're not angels, we're human beings. But I can choose to keep fighting to be on that path, being better and better and doing better. It might be hard. It is hard. I remember as a quote, I think the human like as I saw it, the overall form is determined within the form. The artist can use anything they want. So that's a beautiful point. Matthew's saying, yes, in many ways, God's what's called mazel, or the overall picture of where the world's going. And I want to get to that right now for the last teaching. Those are things that are determined. Traditionally, we're taught. But how we get there, how human beings and the Jewish people get to certain destinations is based on our free choice. And God responding to that. That's great. Okay, now, let me give you one. We'll close off with this very big one. Not big in words, but another philosophical one. Actually, it's not philosophical, is not the right word for this one. This is more cosmic existential, if you want to call it that. Hold on. Wait, where is it? Sorry. Here we go. Okay, I want to get this sharing right so you see it. And I want, and I'm going to quickly run and get my plug so my computer doesn't go off. Jerry, I want you to tell me if you can see this screen share. You should see two statements by Rabbi Jacob. Do you see it?
We see it, yes.
Fantastic. Does anyone want to read them both aloud? Because I'm just going to run 2 seconds to get my plug so my computer doesn't go off in the last 5 minutes or 10 minutes.
Rabbi Jacob said, this world is like a vestibule before the world to come. Prepare yourself in the vestibule so that you may enter the banqueting hall. He used to say, more precious is 1 hour in repentance and good deeds in this world than all the life of the world to come. And more precious is 1 hour of the tranquility of the world to come than all the life of this world.
Beautiful, Jerry. I'm back. I'm back. Thank you.
We can't read it, though.
What, you can't read it?
No, I said we can't. I obviously can read it. Not that I understand it.
Wait, you saw it? I'm sorry, I misunderstood.
Yeah, no, it's red.
No, I just said I read it.
It's there.
Loud.
Good. So you can hear me? Rabbi Yaakov said, this world, again, the translation, I don't think I've ever used the word vestibule in my life. Maybe I have. It's okay. It's fine. This world is like a corridor, a prose door, in front of or before Ha'olam Haba, the world that's coming. And you probably, so right there, just, you've probably heard these phrases, but very important. Olam hazeh, this world, right now, where we are, Olam haba, literally the world that's coming, the world to come. Prepare yourself in the corridor or in the vestibule in order that you may enter the palace or the banquet hall. And then as a follow-up, I guess, he used to say, and that's right, Yafeh, more pleasant or precious is 1 hour of repentance and good deeds in this world than all of the life of the world to come. And more precious, more precious is 1 hour of the, here it's a good translation actually, of the koras ruach, or tranquility or peace of mind in the world to come, than all the life of this world. I'm going to step back because that's some heavy stuff, and I want to hear people where you want to go with it for our last 10 minutes.
Rabbi, my take on it is that from a Kabbalistic perspective, there's different levels of the soul, and each time we're here on earth, it's to learn certain lessons we need to bring our soul to, so we can end up with Hashem. So the world here is where we have to improve ourselves and work on those things that are missing in our soul. And then once we've done that, then we can go into the banquet hall with Hashem.
Wow, beautifully said. Anybody want to? I like this group. It's a great group. Now, I'll point out, I'm just waiting for if anyone wants to. Aaron, are you typing something?
Well, I have a question.
Yeah, okay, yeah, please speak.
Which
Okay,
world to
great.
come is he talking about? When the Messiah comes, or the world to come like heaven?
Okay, fantastic. So thank you, Aaron. Beautiful question. These are big topics, and glad you asked that. Now, and I'm going to answer that, or the best I can. But I think, so for some people, Aaron, Shoshana, and I'm sure many others are familiar with some of these ideas a little bit. Others maybe not so much. But Aaron asked a very good question. And by the way, Shoshana, you made a great point. We'll get to it in a second. But I mean, right. Based on quote unquote traditional sources. Now, I should quickly say one thing. You might say quite incisively, you might ask quite incisively, like many people ask, including the book called Kuzari I mentioned before, why don't we see in the 5 books of Moses much explicit discussion about what's called Olam Haba, the world to come? We don't. Whatever Olam Haba means, and we'll get to that in a second, whether it's the Messianic age, as Aaron mentioned, or it means a heavenly realm, it's not in the 5 books of Moses. So come on, it's just some, I don't know, it's a later invention influenced by the Greeks. No, I was saying that sarcastically, not at all. It's always been a part of Torah wisdom. The fact that, first I would say that traditionally understood. I'm not saying there aren't people who have different views of Judaism, but you asked me for this class, I'll give you the different. No, it was implicit to people that we live beyond this world. And I mean, it's implicit even in, God breathed into the soul, the nostrils of a man, a soul of life. So, I mean, that doesn't say explicitly that soul lives forever, but that's not of the material of the body, which disintegrates. But in any case, the idea that there's a neshama, a soul, and it lives beyond this olam hazeh, this world, and even that it existed before it was put in this world, is a part of traditional Jewish wisdom. It's not spelled out in the written Torah for many reasons, chief of which we couldn't understand it, and it would lead itself to more misunderstanding. So where is all this kind of perspective and information? As you might know, it's in the oral tradition, of which this book is a part. But it's more explicit in the Talmud, and it's much, much more explicit in that most hidden realm called Sod, or Kabbalistic wisdom, which I am not proficient in, but I know a dabbling of. But nowadays we live in a time when we can learn a lot of beautiful, deep mystical wisdom brought to us by later great rabbis or sages or people. So even though I don't delve into the works of the Arizal, Isaac Luria, a great Kabbalist in the 1500s, maybe one day I'll get smart enough to do that, but I haven't yet, or whatever. But anyway, we can learn a lot of true mystical stuff in a way we can use in our lives. But in any case, so you might say, why? So that's, we'll have to shelve that now, but it's true. There are hints, remazim, to the soul, to life after death, all in the Torah, to the Messiah, but it's not spelled out. It was all left to the oral tradition, like a lot of the deeper wisdom in Judaism. The written Torah deals with the concrete world we see and live in, and it doesn't lend itself, to these more abstract things, though it's hinted at. Okay, that's a simple, maybe oversimplified answer, but okay. So sorry, Aaron. Sorry, I thank you for your patience. So Aaron mentioned, it's true, in the traditional body of this whole worldview, there's 3 phases to existence. there's, I guess you could say, yeah, there's something called, well, it depends how you number it, right? There's Olam Hazeh, there's this world. There's something called Olam HaNeshamot. I guess it's called the world of souls. And then there's something called Olam Haba, the world to come. I don't want to get too arcane, but suffice it to say like this. I think Rabbi Jacob here means, he could mean one of two things. The ultimate Olam Haba in Judaism, except for Maimonides, okay? Except for Maimonides, most of the great traditional sages understand the final destination. I don't know if Amy and Jerry and Vivian and Mindy knew he gets quite so existentially deep tonight, but the final destination is called the resurrection of the dead, right? That's a teaching in Judaism. Techiyat HaMeitim, it's one of the 13 main principles Maimonides says, and every day in prayer, meaning the soul, the spiritual essence of who we are, reunited with a new and improved body, and again living in a new and improved physical world. Not having the same physical lusts and passions of this time of our existence, but still not disembodied souls. So let me repeat, sorry. Except for Maimonides, everyone, the great sages say, Olam Haba, the full final meaning of that phrase, the world to come, means the resurrected state. Before you and I, hopefully after a wonderful, healthy, happy life of friendship and learning in the Jewish Studies Center and many years to come, after we right now leave Olam Hazeh, we don't go right to Olam Haba. We go to this way station called the world of souls. But in a more general sense, Aaron and everybody, Olam Haba can really mean anything beyond this world. But I'm just sharing with you that the ultimate reward we are taught is in that resurrected state. After the soul's in a blissful state in that upper Garden of Eden or whatever, that right? That's literally, like if we have any deceased parents or grandparents, that's where they are. Literally, that's where they are. They're in the Olam HaNeshamos, Gan Eden, the bond of life. There are all these mystical ways of saying it, but they're in an intensely pleasurable beyond our conception level of conscious connection with the Creator and with others, and you know, they're much more alive than we are in this world. That's our teaching. But that's not the full Olam Haba. In the world to come, the righteous will be resurrected in a bodily state. So that makes sense. But I mentioned Rambam because I'm not an expert, but it is true. I think it's true that Maimonides seems to say that he doesn't deny resurrection. He teaches it as part of the concepts of Judaism, but he says that's not eternal, meaning after there's a period of bodily resurrection and full reward, spiritual reward given, not Cadillacs. I'm dating myself. Not cars and pools or whatever. But after some great spiritual reward, then the body dies again and the souls live in everlasting eternity. But like I said, most of the other great heavy hitters argue with Rambam and say no, that resurrected bodily state is the ultimate future of, as far as we are told in our tradition, mankind. Okay, but sorry if that took too long, but if you can stay a couple more minutes, because, okay, so I just want to say, comments or questions about that, and I invite them. I'm not rushing anybody off, but please do not feel compelled to stay. I just want to point out one or two more things on my end, but I want to hear what you have to say. And then in the second part of Rabbi Jacob's statement, I want to point out, what seems like a paradox, because it seems like he's saying almost something contradictory, and I want to clarify why it's not. I'm sure you noticed that too. Any comments or questions? Yeah, Aaron.
Yeah, well, I think it's real important which one he means, because the world to come is a community endeavor. We don't get there individually. We get there as a community that becomes, the world as a community. The place your soul goes when you die, well, everyone goes there alone. And that's a more Christian concept.
Well, I would say, no, you make a good point, but then again, I mean, I don't know, this is not my area of expertise, but even there are levels and there are divisions and there are rooms in that banquet hall. Let's say banquet hall. Again, you're probably right, Rabbi Yaakov. It's a good question, actually, and maybe for next week, I'll look around and you can look around too. But I mean, even in that intermediate stage of the Olam Neshamot, there's different rooms, levels. They actually say you might have, you know what? Everyone who's been through many, myself included, many a Yom Kippur, in the Beis Din Shamala, we say in Kol Nidre, we allude to, there are a lot of study halls in that palace above. So there are many different levels, whether Jewish, non-Jewish, in their own place or whatever. So I wouldn't say it's completely individual that way. I mean, we're still, and Klal Israel anyway, for level.
Yeah.
Spiritually connected. So a good one. Yes, I mean, I think both really are collected. So
I
could explore that more. We've got I would say that.
I think your sound is bad, Rabbi.
Yes.
You made the point about Christianity. So sure, right? I mean, I'm not with that. Wait, let me respond quickly to Shoshana and I want to say and Carol. Oh, thank you. Carol made some good points. Shoshana, I just want to say that what she said, right? Ego is really miserable tonight because she mentioned something like I don't know if she said it, but there's also a concept of Yogul Neshamos. Yeah, I mean, it could be you and I have been here before. Our Neshama has been here before. And that's not dealt with in Pirkei Avos, but it is dealt with in Kabbalistic sources. Let me say one thing, Shoshana. I just want to say one point so I don't forget.
Yeah. Oh,
Here's
Rabbi,
the main thing. And if some people are like, Rabbi, do mystical.
your sound's weird. Rabbi, I was going to mention when you said the world of the Neshamot, I would think that's the place when we have somebody who we love who passes away. They go into that space, and that's why we say Kaddish for 11 months.
Then Adolf is not in a nice right now. He's somewhere else. Can you hear me?
Your sound is bad.
I'm sorry. I just want to say that this world is a world
Try
of
to speak slower.
Don't go. Go on. Sorry.
I think it could be my
listen,
speaker, but to me, your sound is not understandable.
Rabbi, this is Vivian.
Breaking up. I'm sorry. The silly technology is.
This is Vivian. I've got a question. What you're saying, what you're explicating, you're citing all kinds of authorities, but isn't the Orthodox?
I hope you can hear me. I'm going to talk. People are only coming out a little bit. Have a good Shabbos, Matthew. Good week seeing you. I'm sorry, Aaron. Oh, thank you so much. Okay, people can leave, but I just want to say, I'm only going to hear you. I can't hear you so well. So let me just say, Carol made a good point also, resurrection. Yes, I mean, I guess that is, look, we're taught that resurrection is easiest for those in the land of Israel and Jacob. Maybe Mount of Olives first. I don't know. I'm not, I could be that right. But don't worry. We're all, God willing, it'll all work out in the best way. But I didn't even mention, I thought, and Aaron left. Right. There's also this thing called the Messianic Era. That's not Olam Haba, really. The Messianic Era, it might be coming soon. It might be actually, I don't know. But I mean, the Messianic Era is an era in human history where there don't have to be, it's a discussion whether there are miraculous things openly, like leaving Egypt or not. Maimonides says there won't be open miracles necessarily in the Messianic Era, but there won't be any more war, and there won't be any more injustice, and everyone will live in plenty and peace and consciousness of God. So that phase of human history before the ultimate resurrection of the dead. I should have mentioned that anyway, but I just wanted to say that idea, Shoshana, if you're still there, I want to hear you, just that this world is a world of preparation, and here's the point, and not primarily relaxation and enjoyment. Now, is there a lot to be joyful for this? Of course there is. Judaism does not say suffer in this world and the big rewards in the world to come. No. I mean, the truth is we might suffer, God forbid, if we were sent, but like we're supposed to be joyous in this world as much as possible. But this is not the place of sitting back and drinking beer, even though the body wants to do that and I want to do that. Meaning, this is the world of work, of improving ourselves, deep in olam, which means self-improvement in the world of improvement. Yes, is there enjoyment in the way, sorry, Claire, but the ultimate reward, like we say, someone rest in peace. We have Shabbos to rest. We should get enough rest and health. I don't mean that, but this is a world of work. I say this, parent, they say this world is Shabbat, the next world is Shabbat. You know, so you work hard on Erev Shabbat to get ready for Shabbat. You can't sit in and you can't, whatever. If you're gonna want to indulge too much in Shabbat, then you're spoiling your Shabbat. Anyway, Claire, I know it's late. What questions?
Yes, you've cited Kabbalah and other sources, but those of us who are not Orthodox do not buy any kind of afterlife. We do not believe in that. So aren't there forms of Judaism that share my view?
Say that again. I missed the last point of it.
Aren't there forms of Judaism that do not believe in the Orthodox view about life to come or the afterlife or world to come? Aren't there forms, because you're talking on the Orthodox point of view.
Okay, you're right. Absolutely. I think the first time, thank you for saying that, the first time I came on the first second, I don't think I said, I was ready to say, I have no problem saying that. I thought it might be implicit, but I think I did say, I'm just teaching from what I would call the most traditional point of view, which if you want to call it Orthodox, that's fine. Although remember, this text right now is not Kabbalistic. So he's definitely referencing Olam Haba, the world come, and the Talmud is not Kabbalistic. It's not, well, whatever. The Talmud talked Olam Haba too. Maimonides was not really a Kabbalist, and he says, so I'm not trying to argue, I'm trying to say, like, it's true, like the Zohar and some of the Kabbalistic works, it could be that, yes, I was raised Reform. I think, I don't know, whatever. So I know that they're not people believe in it. I'll share with you a traditional point of view. I don't really Orthodox. I don't consider it Orthodox. Before the year 1700, there was no word Orthodox. Nothing I've told you is anything, just traditional wisdom. But yes, I agree with Vivian or Claire. If someone is Reform or if someone whatever they describe, they say, I don't believe this, I wasn't taught this. Okay, I'm just sharing with you. But there are plenty of non-Kabbalistic works that do reference a life to come and a world to come. Kabbalah goes into great depth and sometimes sounding, mystical levels of it, but not the basic idea. Look, I'll just tell you, I grew up with, a little quick personal thing, and then please shut me up if you have to go, but, I grew up with Judaism, a different kind of Reform. I'm younger than some of you, older than some of you, but I grew up in a classical Reform synagogue, and I'm grateful my parents sent me there, and it was wonderful, and it was. I actually liked it in some ways, but we never talked about God. We never talked about the soul. I don't know if I believed in God. I'm not sure. It's well known that in the 70s, anyway, I didn't believe in God. I'm not judging. I'm just saying. So, in my own journey in Judaism, in my 20s, I went to Israel, and I got inspired by, I guess you'd say, Orthodox Judaism. But my role as a Jewish educator is not to teach Orthodoxy. I'm just trying to teach the traditional classic text. But I guess I would say it this way, that, and what I say you can also take issue with. Nothing I say is, I've been around, you can't, we love each other, we can argue or disagree, but there are different ways of explaining Jewish history. I understand that. But I would submit that it is the absolute foundational traditional teaching that we have a soul, it lives on forever. That's always been a part of traditional Judaism. Now, if you say, Rabbi, I don't believe that, I think it's a later religion, okay, we can respectfully disagree about that. But I think it's, let me say one other quick point about that. I'm not ideological, but, it's a class for discussions. This no one can disagree with, really. And I hope I'm not advocating. I don't mean to advocate about Judaism. Until the 1800s, until the original Reform movement.
Rabbi, your voice is really dead. If you speak slower, I think we can understand you. When you're speaking quickly, I can only hear about a quarter of what you're saying.
I'm sorry. I apologize.
But your sound system is bad. That's
I apologize. There goes Rabbi E, make a big problem. Okay, thank you. I'll speak over. Okay, I'm sorry. I'll just say it like this. Leaving aside the more esoteric life after death for a second, but just to just comment on, and I think I'm saying this as an educator because I live with part of one Jewish people. Again, whether you call yourself Orthodox, Reform, Atheist, Buddhist, post-denominational, Reconstructionist, we're one people. The traditional Torah that I think believe in says, love your fellow Jew like yourself, love your fellow man like yourself. So this is just on a level of ideological discussion. But until the 1800s, the Jewish people believed in the 5 books of Moses being the word of God. There was no dispute about God speaking the words of the 5 books of Moses, not in some divine inspiration, but a direct dictation. Now, don't get me wrong. Spinoza didn't believe in that. Plenty of individual Jews didn't believe, and they have the right to do whatever they want. They're free to do what they want. I'm not judging. I'm just commenting. I'm just saying that, like, the Reform movement, and I don't say that, the modern era ushered in such a radical departure from traditional Jewish belief that was universally accepted, though we disagreed about a lot of things. The Talmud is full of disagreements. I know that, but it doesn't disagree that God spoke in a revelation to everyone, and that Moses wrote a complete Sefer Torah by the end of his life. All the things which I know modern, more academic things will criticize. I wouldn't believe that. I'm just saying, so all I'm saying is that I think with the mystical stuff too, it was much more guarded mystical notions. I'm just saying because for reasons, but I just submit to you the traditional point is that was always a part of Jewish wisdom. It's a shame. I'm not judging anybody, movements for people. It's a shame that we live in a world where there's so many fragmented beliefs. And I never meant to say it was a uniformity. Jews, there were the Sadducees. They were an early movement. Thank you. They were an early movement that did question the world to come or the soul and life after death. But the Sadducees believed God spoke to Moses in Sinai, and the Exodus happened. So I'm just commenting on. We live in a very, if you kind of look at all of Jewish history, the last couple of years have been a very radical departure of many Jews from that traditional point of view. I'm not judgmental. I'm just saying that that's a fact. I hope that fact as well. I mean, so please respond if you think I'm saying correctly or whatever. But I mean,
my response would be, can I be?
Yeah, what you're trying to say, I agree with. Go on.
In your eyes, can I be considered a full Jew even though I don't believe in that?
Oh, wait, is that Vivian? Who's speaking? I want to know about your name. Is that Vivian? Or
That's Vivian.
Oh, yeah, no, you were 100%. Wait, let me. Yeah, no. Vivian, you were as Jewish as Moses. You were as Jewish as Moses' mother. You're as Jewish as Rabbi Akiva. Absolutely. I mean, but right. No, this is such an important point. And every Jewish person, the Orthodox person who thinks differently than you, if they don't love you like themselves, and by the way, no Jew, Orthodox, conservative, quote unquote, are perfect. We're all struggling. We're all human. But you're a part of the people as much as everyone. And right. But the way we practice is quite different. I mean, not only you and me, but like the way that, the Orthodox and some of their beliefs are quite different. There's no doubt about that. They're quite different. But you're absolutely as Jewish as Moses.
It's a relief.
I love to make peace between people.
That's a relief.
That's a very big difference to mention.
Okay. I think we're finished for today.
Yeah, and even if someone says, I'm sorry, even if someone says, I respect for saying that. If someone says, Rabbi, I don't, whatever, those things I don't believe, that doesn't, I'm saying the same thing that's so important. And I think sometimes there are people out there you might hear, oh, so he doesn't even think I'm Jewish. But, as someone who grew up in the non-Orthodox world, now lives in the Orthodox world, and I don't live in certain Hasidic communities. I mean, if I go to certain communities, clean shaven, which I'm allowed to be, they might think, most of them are all wonderful people. We should always try to think that was true. But they might think I'm less religious than them. Okay. But the point is, you're as Jewish as anybody. At the same time, it's instructive and important to see those differences. I happen to think, just for me, that those teachings about the soul, the neshama, they're what fascinated me the most about Judaism, got me, and how every mitzvah, every good deed in this world nourishes that part of us. But if for whatever reason it doesn't speak to you, you're not sure, or you don't believe it doesn't, you're a part of the Jewish people. You're gonna be part of the great story we're all together with. Absolutely. But I think I would invite you or anyone else to study them more and think about them, and I'd love to talk more about that with you if you want. Again, it's not. Yeah. Okay. Shoshana, question.
I was just going to mention that there's different
Please get
levels
the new
of
subject. I know it's really
different levels of studying Torah from the Pshat. You go from the simple story to a very deeper level and stuff like that. And all the teachings are the teachings. They're open to everybody. As the rabbi says, different people practice it differently, but it doesn't mean that one group has access to some hidden message in the Torah that the rest of us Jews don't. And over the years, I've actually gone through all of the denominations there are, except Reconstructionist. And, you know, I feel it, I'm a Jew in every single one of them, and there's something I can learn in each one of them.
well. That's what Shoshana just said. The beautiful thing is teaching Pirkei Avos. Who's a wise person? Someone who learns from everybody. And so that is true. The most Orthodox person can learn a ton. The most, I don't know, liberal, progressive, Reconstructionist. Again, though, I do want to say, I mean, like, you know, I'm not post-denominational in the sense that I do believe myself that halakha, Jewish law, has certain precedents and standards that I believe I want to try to follow, but I don't look down on someone if they don't. But I might not want to practice the way they do, and I hope they'll respect me. I'll try to respect them to make their choice for sure and not impose anything of me on them. But I do want to say one quick thing, if you'll indulge me, and that is that if you, Vivian, or anyone here, you know, we have to talk more about it in detail. We're not doing it right now, but like, there's a lot of, you might know, we can't prove the existence of God. We certainly can't prove the existence of a soul, but you or others might be aware, I find it interesting, it might not be your cup of tea either, but there's a whole literature of, you know, what used to be called near-death experiences. And now they're actually called by great researchers actual death experience. Bye, Carol. Hope to see you again. Meaning researchers, not rabbis, no one with an agenda to say, I believe in life after death. But, you know, the scientists, cutting-edge psychologists, who you've known this, I'm sure, but have studied for 50 years now, people who, millions, thousands of people who were called near-death experiences. Now, do they prove absolutely that something about the consciousness of a person lives beyond this world? No, they don't prove it, but a lot of non-religious researchers seem to think that there is, we'll call it scientific evidence or reason to believe, even these people don't call it a soul, they might call it consciousness, but they say it would say, I can quote their names, Bruce Grayson, Sam Barnier, these are respected scientific figures who studied it, and I find it, you can read their books, but anyway, all I'm saying is that, let's say, I'm not saying to be, and this is your point, but let's say someone out there, and there are many Jews, Rabbi, I don't believe in a soul, I don't believe in life after death, but if you look at some of the incredible things, experiences that people said they had when they were literally dead on the operating table, low lane, then it can open someone's mind to say, well, I mean, I haven't thought, maybe a human being is just, maybe a mind, and maybe what our Torah calls the neshama, which doesn't mean some ghostly thing, it means your consciousness, your divine spark that gives life, but has your thoughts in your sense of, maybe that really is, you know, something that does live beyond the body's death. And if you don't believe the Torah, if it says that, or the Kabbalah, Bruce, in his new book called After 45 years of researching near-death experiences, so, and he even says, I don't know, it's certainly a pretty good hypothesis because people who have those experiences report things that they should never have been able to see when they were dead and then came back. Now, again, I know this, like, you know, where am I talking about? I'm just mentioning that because I find, you know, I guess I could sum it up, and I know Jerry's probably like, Rabbi, get out of here. But I love this. I could go all night with you guys. I think a lot of things in science, it's a big misconception. It's a big misconception that so many people have, that they think that science and modern research makes faith harder. I think it makes our traditional faith easier. And in the sense that so many things, whether it's the Big Bang or the immensity of the universe or wonders of DNA or the studies of near-death experiences, like, just show us that, first of all, we don't understand a fraction of the physical even. I believe it's Science is great, but we don't understand how most of the universe is dark matter. We understand what it is. So the physical universe is so beyond still our understanding. So even that, that there are dimensions to human beings, like a soul, like a consciousness that lives beyond this world. I think science and modern research can open up a place in our minds to, hey, wow. And I'll just say, we'll stop now, that it's a well-known point, and I'm not an expert in these things, but like many of the cutting-edge cosmological insights that quantum physicists have and cosmologists are remarkably in sync with that mystical Kabbalistic body of wisdom, remarkably. Many books about that. So, again, does it prove anything? No, you can't prove it exists. I might not hear your soon, right? But you can't prove it. But if someone wants to say, wow, is there evidence of a soul? 100 years ago, if you went to a seance, maybe, but now I would say, read the near-death experience literature. I mean, it's there's some people say it's just the brain, it's dying, it's the chemicals of the brain, but a lot of the best researchers say that does not explain, it can't explain what people experience when they are clinically dead for 5-10 minutes or whatever. Again, those authors don't say, I know that a soul exists forever. They just say that it seems that bodily deceased does not mean the end of consciousness for a little while. Let me shut up. Can let you go to sleep. You're wonderful people. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Let me say a couple words after your thing. That I want to welcome Vivian back to Judaism.
No, Vivian has always been a wonderful Jew, and yes, I welcome her back.
Thank you.
And I want to
wait a second.
I want to announce that Sunday we're having a program with Rabbi Schlesinger, an Orthodox rabbi who, like Rabbi Edelstein, began as a Reform synagogue and became an Orthodox rabbi, a settler in the West Bank, and he and his Palestinian colleagues are running a program to build trust between Jews, Israeli Jews, and non-Jewish Palestinians to make trust and make peace eventually in the.
Wait, Jerry, what's the organization's name? It's an organization they have?
It's called Roots in English.
It's fantastic.
There's also a Palestinian name, and there's also a Hebrew name.
They came to GW. It's a fantastic thing to watch. It's amazing. They came to GW. I saw them. They're great.
Right. Great. They've come to Washington a few years ago, and they go various places around the country. But they both live in the West Bank or Palestine, whatever you want to call it. So
they're definitely, it's very inspiring. Very inspiring to watch.
Hold on here. Before we end, I would like to ask the rabbi to just say a little bit more of the substance of what some of these near-death researchers have actually found. If you could say.
Wow, Mindy, thank you so much. If you don't mind, I don't have to leave. It's Thursday night. I can stay up, call Mishna. I can stay up all night learning with you guys. Okay. I always say this, but I'm not just being humble. I'm probably not humble as I should be, but I'm not an expert. I've just read a few books,
right?
But I can tell you they're worth reading. And here's what they say. So, right, I made a couple of sweeping comments. Let me explain. So, first of all, it's not 100%. I think they say it's 15%. I don't know. It's all, you find the books, the statistics, but it's a certain percentage of people who have these, again, I want to say literal clinical death experiences. They're clinically dead. Clinically dead, right? You know that, right? But they report, certain cross-culture, cross-age, cross-religion, certain experiences. And I remember even as a kid, it became a cliche, the light at the end of the tunnel, because a lot of them say that they feel like they see themselves leaving their body, and then they're in a tunnel, and there's this light at the end, and then they often say like a being of light. They often describe the most unbelievable sense of joy and love that they've ever experienced, and many of them therefore don't want to leave that to come back. Now let let me go point by point for a second. First of all, God is compared to light. God's not physical, but light is all over, just a description of like all of, because in the physical world, there's nothing less physical than light. It's one of the clearest metaphor of a spiritual realm. But then another fascinating point, first of all, is that it says in Pirkei Avos a little later, right? Against your will, you're born. The neshama doesn't want to come in this world. Let's go. And Vivian, if she's still here, and you're amazing, but just go with this weird teaching that Judaism says your consciousness existed before it was put into your wonderful body right now. It was up in we don't remember it, but it was in a realm of divine bliss, in another realm, another dimension. It doesn't want to come into this world. Why? This beautiful world with hamburgers and hot dogs, this world is nothing compared to that. It's just not, this world is dark and difficult. The soul does not want to come in. And so many of the people say, and some of them really don't want to come back, and they're traumatized. They say, it was so beautiful there, I didn't want to leave there. But anyway, okay, let me not get ahead of myself. They describe, and this is amazing, seeing everything in their life, like their life flash before them, but everything they say in three-dimensional detail. And not only that, but they claim, and I'll just tell you, all of these things are in Kabbalistic writings. They are. Now about what the soul experiences and when it leaves this world from 2,000 years ago. But they say they see, many say, not all, but many say, they see the effect of their deeds. They see if now again, let me pause for a second. We have a concept called Teshuva Repentance, meaning, let's say you said something mean to your sister 30 years ago. If you said you're sorry, you're not going to see that when your soul leaves you got rid of that. That's Teshuva. But these people, let's say this is a near-death experience. They didn't know they were about to die, whatever. So let's say they said something nasty. They see how damaging that is, and they feel it from the other's point of view. Like several of the people Bruce Grayson has talked to in his 45 years said, I saw the pain I caused that other person inside, and I felt terrible about it. Now you might say, wow, that sounds horrible, but that's in keeping with Jewish teaching that in that world, all filters are gone. You're shown, not because God is a just God, because everything we do has an effect. But on the other hand, they see all the good. Now, again, these people have not fully died, like gone to heaven. They're like in some intermediate stage, let's say, for argument's sake. But they still report this kind of life review, and they see the good and how important, like doing good for others. Well, the Torah is full of doing good for others. That's what we're supposed to be doing in this world. So now, but here's the point, Vivian, and sorry, Mindy. There are many other things, but let me say a couple other things. All of those are very nice, but a lot of those are things that, they see relatives, they see people they don't know, they see their great grandmother, they see their grandmother, like, not as bodies, they don't have a body, but they're, by the way, the rabbis say in the mysticism, your eyes are not what sees, your soul sees. In this physical world, you need your eyes. But so they report seeing blind people. Again, this is not Rabbi E blabbing. Researchers have said blind people see when they've seen things in these near-death experiences, which the idea that the soul has a power of sight. But they see dead relatives and they see, etc. But all those things people can plausibly say, well, that's just the brain, even evolutionarily, I don't know, blah, blah. But there's one thing that they can't explain. The real thing that's the most, one thing they say is another point is that most people who have these are profoundly changed by these experiences, or a lot of them. Meaning, you have a dream, I have a dream, or I have an experience, and I forget about it after a while. Many people, their lives are changed by this. They stop fearing death because they say, I know we don't die, we live on. And it's beautiful there. It's like, I felt this being loved me more than anyone loved me in my life before. So their lives are changed. They often lose, not everyone, they often lose a fear of death. They become much more selfless and compassionate because the message they get, it's not like a doctrine, like, it's not like they're reading for a Torah. It's interesting, whatever. They cross denominations and religions, but they come back with a sense that living a life of meaning and purpose is what we're here for, not just, material accumulations. So again, that's very striking to these researchers, because they say, these are psychologists who write these books, psychiatrists. They say, people have a lot of fantasies or daydreams, but what's striking about near NDEs, they're called, is how profoundly changed people are by these experiences. It changes the course of their whole life. They don't necessarily become more religious in a dogmatic sense necessarily, but they become much more spiritual often and have a sense that this world is not the end at all. But then here's the thing, I've been leaving the best for the last, not the best. Here's another point they say, and this is the one that really baffled and people cannot explain. From the very beginning, Raymond Moody was one of the first researchers of this, I don't know, 40 or 50 years ago. And again, all these people, don't worry. There are people who, argue. They're skeptics. Susan Blackmore is the one. There are definite scientists who say, no, I don't buy what they're saying. But ones I'm quoting, Bruce Grayson, Sam Parney, there are many of them, Bruce Fenwick, these are all researchers. They're not even religious people, really. So it's like, they don't have any, I get anyone can be lying out there, but this is all a big body of research. Sorry, here's what they say. You might have heard this. Already 40 or 50 years ago, when it was just starting and this whole phenomenon started, one of the early cases is what got Raymond Moody to keep researching. And he was the grandfather of this research, because he was a cardiologist, right? No, a psychiatrist, one of the two. Anyway, someone came back after like a flatline near-death experience, and they said, I don't know why, but someone left a pair of purple sneakers out on the windowsill of the 6th floor of the hospital. And the people said, what are you talking about? They said, well, I guess I died because I went above my body. I saw my body and I kind of was able to float, and I went out the window of the hospital and I saw a check. Someone left a pair of sneakers on the 6th floor. And Raymond Moody did. And absolutely. And not just that one time, people came back and saying, why was the doctor who was pumping my heart wearing 2 different colored socks? And the person was dead, and they checked. And it sounds ludicrous, and I guess someone could say, "Oh, that's all bogus, made up." But come on, I know there are things made up out there. This is not made up. This is research where people. So things that a person couldn't possibly have seen, because they were dead. They were dead, or their eyes were shut, and they accurately reported things that they said they saw, because they, or some of them, floated above their body and looked down at their body and saw what was going on. So there are many accounts of that. And the truth is, again, be skeptical, but those things are really hard to fathom. Again, it doesn't prove there's a soul. It doesn't prove anything. But anyway, Shoshana.
Rabbi, thank you very much. Much to ponder as always, and thank you for all.
You're amazing. You're wonderful. Thank you so much. Let me know how much ever I can help in helping you ponder more. Okay.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Rabbi,
Bye-bye.
I have a similar story. I'll tell it very quickly. My best girlfriend, who I've known for like 50 odd years, she had emergency surgery and she was on the hospital, and she actually had died. When she came to and stuff like that, after the surgery, and she healed and everything, she told us of her experience of seeing a white light and seeing her body over the surgery, like she's on the a surgical table and she's floating over it, and she repeated what the doctor said and stuff like that. And then when she spoke to the doctors afterwards, they could not believe what she knew and what was going on with her surgery and stuff. And the other thing, she said she could like either see or feel her mother in the hallway crying and screaming, "You can't die because you have a 5-year-old child right here."
That's amazing. You know someone. So you know what? I and thank God, I guess. I can't say in my little circle, but like this is so common. Meaning, again, not everyone has these same experiences. Some have different experiences. But the striking thing is just that a certain percentage have this consistent, description of things. Now there are beautiful. Wow, Shoshana, that's incredible. That really is incredible. Yes, and the relatives. Okay, sorry we got off on this, but I hope it's interesting to people. But I would say, and then I'll just tell you that, this is not my area of research. And again, everyone here should live long. We should not know about these things. But if you talk to people also, or hospice, people who work in hospice, it's been known for centuries, thousands of years, what are called deathbed visitations. Now, meaning like people, when they're about to pass on, see their relatives and they say, my father is here in the room with me or whatever. Now, again, a skeptic could just say they're emphasizing, and yeah, that could be argued, but it's like, it's such a common thing. And I've talked personally to people who work in the health, again, who are not like religious dogmatists, and they're like, yeah, they're absolutely having some amazing spiritual experience, but it could be the brain or it could be real. I mean, and again, Judaism certainly says actually that the mystical text, that your loved ones do come to you, transition from this room to the corridor, from this corridor to the next world, which again, it's a beautiful thing. Again, we shouldn't know about it for a long time in this wonderful little world we live in, but I'll tell you one other quick thing about that if anyone's listening, and I got to go. I've overstayed my welcome. But another fascinating insight about this kind of genre, and I don't know if I read about this. It's another thing, and this is fascinating. And I know I've known people they've said. One of the arguments, obviously, someone could say, Rabbi, consciousness is just created by the brain, right? And that's what, materialist or a person who doesn't believe in a soul or whatever, a strict empirical materialist might say, right, learn in consciousness, but it's not a soul. It's not something from out there. It's just a product of the brain cells. So near-death experiences seem to negate that possibly, but there's another phenomenon that's very strange. And it's a fancy name for it. It's called, now I forgot it. I'm getting old. I forgot it. Here's the situation. It happens often. Someone can be seriously brain damaged, not dead, brain damage, have suffered some injury or Alzheimer's, advanced Alzheimer's. They've spent years and organically their brain has deteriorated to a remarkable level. Oh, you know what? It's called something lucidity. It's called Premorbid Lucidity. It seems to be quite common that in the 24 hours or 36 hours before this person leaves this world, they suddenly are restored to almost perfect cognitive ability. There's a person who had Alzheimer's for years, couldn't recognize anybody, and they're like talking, they're like normal. So again, I'm not talking about rabbis, I want to stress this. Rabbis always look for things, right? But researchers said it seems like their brain is damaged. Their brain should not be having normal functioning. The person hasn't. And then before they leave, there seems to be a restoration of consciousness, of cognitive ability. It's called paradoxical pre-death lucidity. And then they die. Now, so what would be the religious explanation of that? It would be obviously because your brain doesn't create your thoughts. Your brain is the, what we call it? It's the radio transmitter in this world that we need. It's a wonderful thing to have a brain, but it doesn't create consciousness. Consciousness is connected to the brain in some way we cannot understand, but it's not limited to the brain. So in other words, in those people, for whatever, again, I don't want to get too mystical, but I guess when their soul is literally ready to leave this world, there's an infusion of lucidity from the soul, from the neshama, and that even though the brain, it shouldn't be that way, it's organically damaged, they're lucid. I had someone who, on a lower level, he wasn't severely damaged, but he was very, just a few months ago, a dear friend of my wife and I passed away, and his wife, and he was really out of it, and it wasn't as dramatic a case, but same idea, I think, common thing. He was very, very in and out of it, not in this world. And then he suddenly got very alive and conscious and energetic and what's the word I'm looking for? He was relating like it was he's fine. And then he died a day later. Whatever. Okay, so those are all pieces. Now I'm going to leave unless you have any other questions. But those are just things, Vivian or anyone, that can get wow, maybe we're living in a time where we can ponder these things about eternal matters, not just from the Holy Torah, which I believe is a great source to ponder, but even from the scientific research that they're not going to say yet, oh, I see a soul, but we haven't even talked about reincarnation. I don't want to get started on that. We can talk about that another time. Okay, have a great week and a great
Thank
Shabbat,
you.
everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rabbi. Thank
Please
you.
always reach
Shalom,
out to
everyone.
me. Please email me, call me. I always love to talk. Okay, bye.
Okay.
Rabbi, okay.
Okay. Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone. Hope to see you guys on Sunday.
All right.